chase down my heart through all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Well, you lost your life so I could find it here. And if you left the grave behind you so alive, I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart in a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. And if you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
All right, I think we're ready. Yeah, he sure is. My son. Are you ready, Marcus? You're getting married in like 3 days or something, huh? Yeah. Just a normal week, regular old week. Super busy week for us. We have Trinity College graduation on Saturday morning, ladies' tea, and then Marcus and Carly's wedding. It's going to be just a big old long day, but all good stuff, all real fun stuff. So, and of course, Mother's Day on Sunday. Make sure you come. It's going to be a good time. We got some stuff planned for the moms. Be fun. Everyone can have a great time. But anyway, you guys good? You ready to go? Pumped? Okay. You guys don't seem pumped. You seem really, everybody seems really tired. You seem about as tired as I am. But we are continuing. Here we go. We are in part 13, lucky number 13. And we're going to be closing out this whole study, just talking about the strange days that we live in with various emphases each week. We'll probably be landing the plane here in the next 3 weeks, probably, right around the end of May. I don't have it specifically planned out yet, but I'm thinking probably at the end of May. And then we'll take a little break over the summer for Wednesday nights, at least from this type of setting. And then we'll see where it goes. But we're talking about tonight, the strange times that we live in right now, and particularly looking through the lens of technology. And as we look at all of these strange days, We remember the words from Jesus in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. And he says, "For then," and this is in the last days, presumably, "for there will be great distress unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again." And I said presumably because there are some various interpretations on Jesus' Olivet Discourse and what specifically he was talking about. If you were with us in our Revelation study, you know that there is a interpretive sect, I guess, a group of people who believe that he was talking specifically about the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And then there are others who believe that he was talking about the last days, and I'm kind of in the camp where I think it was both. And this sort of recapitulation that you see throughout scriptures, very often where prophecies have multiple layers of fulfillment. Probably talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, particularly because Matthew says in that section, "Let the reader understand." And he's targeting, you would think, his original audience there in the first century. But anyway, this is not what I didn't intend to go here. In the last days, we can easily understand that Jesus is saying that in the last days, there's going to be great distress in the world, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now and never to be equaled again. So you have to think like, there's been some really crazy things that have happened throughout the history of the world, particularly when you look at like, say Noah's flood or something like that. I mean, some really, really awful stuff. So what's going to happen where things are going to be worse than they ever have been? And that is presumably going to be the time when the restrainer, as we're told, takes his hand off of the world and world events, and the enemy essentially just runs wild throughout the world with no restraining hand of God on him. And this is going to take place. You start to wonder, as every generation has, going, all the way back to the apostles in the first century, and every subsequent generation up until this current one thinks about and considers what is the end of the world going to look like. And of course, as time marches on and history progresses and world events change and technologies develop, we have all kinds of new sorts of ideas about what the end might look like. And as we are approaching these latter days, or are in them and approaching the last day, we have various ideas of what that's going to look like. And a lot of our speculation about the end times we see through the lens of technology. And we had talked some time ago, a few weeks ago, about a series that's on Netflix called Black Mirror. You guys remember we were talking about this? And the idea of the Black Mirror program is that the Black Mirror represents this technology, right? And of course, we see the Black Mirror in our televisions. When those are turned off, we see them on our phone screens, right? It's this Black Mirror, and kind of you can actually literally see yourself in it when the screen is off. But then even when we turn the screens on, it's like we're watching a show about ourselves, right? We're watching humanity kind of unfold and devolve in front of our eyes, and that's kind of the premise of this show. And with each episode, they follow a different storyline about a piece of technology that's introduced, and then basically horrible, horrific, evil things happen through this technology. So various different episodes, if you've seen any of them, they're strange. They're really interesting. But a lot of it kind of, it would fall into the category of science fiction. And science fiction is always sort of prophetic. Anytime we read science fiction, it always seems a little bit ahead of its time. Science fiction authors are usually looking into the not-so-distant future, and they're telling these stories, these dystopian sorts of stories about earth going awry and governments going awry and technologies and those sorts of things. And we see all of this in Black Mirror. But the thing with Black Mirror is it's like so close to what's already taking place in the world that it's slightly terrifying. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's going to be our premise for this evening. But I want to just go back to the central subject of our study here, which is the devil. And one of the things about the devil that we might remember, you might remember from the very beginning of this study, is that Satan wants to be like God. This has been basically his downfall from the very beginning, was that he wanted to be just like God. We see this, of course, in Isaiah 14. We get this little kind of description of Satan, how you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. That the devil wants to be like God. The difficulty is that there is no one like God. There is no one like our God at all, and he has these attributes that are essentially, they are only held in himself. And some of these attributes, there are many, but you might be familiar with these ones, the omnis, that God is omnipotent, meaning he is all-powerful. He is omniscient, which means that he knows everything, and he is omnipresent, which means that he is everywhere. So God is all-powerful, he is all-knowing, and he is ever-present everywhere. So if the devil wants to be like God, then he has to figure out a way to be all-powerful, to be all-knowing, and to be ever-present. And the terrifying reality is that our technology is moving to a place where that is actually a possibility. The all-powerful thing, you might be thinking, well, who could possibly have all the power of God? Maybe if we're even talking about knowledge and presence, I can maybe understand where you're going with that. But what about power? You've heard this expression before, that knowledge is power. That if you have knowledge of someone, you have great power over them. If I knew all of the details about any one of your lives in here, imagine the type of control I could have over an individual if I knew every single thing about you, with threat of exposing your dirty, dark secrets, the things that you say and do in the privacy of your own home when no one else is looking. But if somehow or another I knew about all of those things, there have actually been some various scams that have gone on the internet, where they try to basically get people to give they hold their internet accounts ransom for money, and they say, if you don't do what we want, we'll release this video that we got from your webcam, or we will release this text thread that you shared with this person, or various other things like that. And you can have a great deal of power over people if you know about them. If you remember, at the very beginning of our study, we looked at the book, The Art of War, some excerpts from that, from Sun Tzu, and he said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Basically, what we have been doing here is trying to know our enemy so that we can be aware of the things that he's doing, be keen to his attacks so that we don't fall prey to his subtleties, and we can see all of these things happening. So we try to know him in order that we can have power in our lives to avoid what he's up to. But in the same way, he is very busy knowing each and every one of us. The devil makes it his priority to know us. And you might be thinking, well, doesn't that only belong to the Lord? Doesn't knowledge of such type only belong to God? And I would say yes, But going back to our idea of science fiction and dystopian futures, you guys are all familiar with the George Orwell novel 1984, right? Yes? No? Wow. No? A surprising amount of you have not heard of 1984. This was George Orwell, who very, very famous science fiction author, also wrote War of the Worlds, Time Machine, like all of these. You should have read most of these books in school. I don't know if he wrote Animal Farm, but wrote a lot. And what were you saying, Caleb? Yes. He did? Animal Farm? Okay, there you go. Animal Farm. I didn't know that. I've read Animal Farm. I can't believe I didn't know that. The premise of this book, which I don't remember when it was written, sometime in the, I don't know, maybe 40s or something like that. But the idea was that Big Brother, this is where the idea of Big Brother, he coined that phrase, was watching you, right? That your TV, when you're watching your TV is actually watching you, right? This idea that was, he put this forth, and then he had all of these different ideas about the notion of thought policing, right? That you even can control what people are thinking, and not to say that you actually physically control what they're thinking, but you govern the way that people are allowed to think, the things that they are allowed to say, all of these various things where back when he wrote this, he said it in the future at the time, which was 1984, and people are thinking, I mean, come on. The TV's watching you? I mean, that's silly. There's going to be people who try to control the things that you say and tell you what truth is. This is sort of ridiculous, and of course now we live in the reality of 1984. You notice when I was looking up some various images for this, all of the covers for the various editions of his book all have this sort of single eye imagery there. And you can see the way that this one's been depicted with the all-seeing eye, looking down on the masses, knowing everything that everyone's doing, hearing everything that everyone's saying, and basically gathering information on everyone in order to have power over everyone, because knowledge is power. It is this idea of a governmental system which can follow you, knows everything you're doing, knows how many of you, when you remember the first time you got in your car and your phone asked you if you were going to the place that you were going to, and you were like, well, that's interesting. Yes, I am going to Publix. How did you know that? Sort of weird, but all this stuff is monitoring you. They know where you're going. They, of course, know where you are at any moment of the day, because we carry around our own little GPS trackers with us, right? Just to let everybody know exactly where we are. And they made a film about this, too, back in 1998. Does anybody remember this one, Enemy of the State, with Will Smith and Gene Hackman? And I remember this was like the big summer movie at the time or whatever, and I went in the theaters to see it, and it was like, he is Will Smith wrongly accused of some crime or something, so the NSA is trying to track him down, and there's this, like, they're following him everywhere. They're pulling up surveillance cameras from, like, gas stations and stuff. And, we saw him here, and they're following at the time, cell phones were just brand new and archaic now, but they're following little signals and things like that. They're looking at him from satellites, and, come on, this is crazy. Like, this is silly. And then now, it's like, oh, yes, the government could, if they wanted to, not to say that they're nefarious in any way, but they could spy on us. They could follow us. They could presumably, they know everywhere that we are, everything that we're saying. We all, of course, know and have experienced the thing where our phones seem to be listening to us, and now we're not just telling us where we're going and when we get in our car, but like advertisements are coming up. And sometimes, it's like, maybe I did do a Google search for that one time, but we've all had those instances where it's like, I'm pretty certain I never typed this into my phone. I might have said it out loud one time, but the really terrifying one is the one where you're like, I was just thinking about this. And I have heard speculation that some of these programs and algorithms actually can predictively guess the sorts of things that you will be needing or wanting and those sorts of things. And they do it with some degree of accuracy, presumably, if they can. And this, of course, brings us back to what's become our favorite image from this study here. And just kind of this image there, almost like a taunt, where there is this, here you go, we're sitting at the top of this tower, looking down, surveilling, seeing what every one of you are doing. The picture looks really clear from way up here, and we can see everything, and we see you, and we know exactly what you're doing. A lot of this, in large part, happened from the U.S. Patriot Act, if you remember this one. It was passed in 2001, and it expanded the authority of law enforcement and intelligence agencies to investigate terrorism, including measures like expanded surveillance and information sharing. So you might remember that after September 11th, for those of us in the room who are old enough to remember, not just alive, but actually old enough to remember that happening, the world was, of course, in chaos. Everyone was terrified, and no one knew if some plane was going to fall out of the sky today or tomorrow, or what it would crash into. And the government, our good buddy George W. Bush, stepped in and said, we must take control of this situation. And that means that we are going to extend our reach, and basically we will be able to take away what have been privacies of individuals that they have retained for a long time. And the government really, in many people's opinions, I suppose it's an opinion, but really, really overstepped their reach there. It's really interesting to consider. Some of you, us, remember when you used to be able to go to the airport and you would pull right up to the front door of the airport and you could just walk straight to your terminal and right onto your plane. You guys remember that? You just buy a ticket at the counter and you walk right onto the plane. A friend of mine he repaired ice machines, actually, and he said he walked onto a flight one time he had to do an emergency call out, and he's like the only one licensed to fix this thing, and he got on a plane with a tool bag full of drills and knives and all kinds of tools and just walked right onto the plane. And then we've just been conditioned now at this point, oh, well, if you want to fly, of course you have to let them search through your bag and look at all of your personal items. Of course you have to stand in a scanner where they can basically take a picture of you without your clothes on. Of course. If you didn't know that, if you haven't seen those pictures if you haven't seen what they see on the screen, it basically just removes your clothes. It's pretty really invasive. Really, really invasive. We've just, it's for your safety, right? It's to keep us all safe. That's why we're doing it, to protect you. And that's always how it's rolled out. It's for your protection. And then, of course, the rebuttal from these people who they say, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then you don't need to worry. If you're not a criminal, you don't have anything to worry about. Are you a criminal? Only criminals would worry about us looking behind the curtain a little bit. And then really the question is just about your own privacy, and if privacy is indeed a fundamental human right, and if it's something that we should have. I believe that it is. But anyhow, This about the Patriot Act. Just 45 days after the attacks on September 11, 2001, a panicked Congress passed with virtually no debate the U.S. Patriot Act. The law amounted to an overnight revision of the nation's surveillance laws that vastly expanded the government's authority to spy on its own citizens while simultaneously reducing checks and balances on those powers. So basically, they use, and of course, whatever you believe about the circumstances of September 11th, at the very least, it's pretty safe to say the official story is a little bit fishy. There are some things that just kind of don't really seem to add up. My personal opinion, but nonetheless, whatever it was that happened on that day, some really strange things. I should have brought the clip. A lot of people know that George Bush was in an elementary school in Florida when the planes were flying into the towers, but had anybody seen the video of the kids? They were doing a reading exercise, and you saw the story or the words that the kids were reading. It was like plane hit steel. They're just reading these words. You can look it up. Look, it's really like, oh, what a strange coincidence that George Bush is in a room where these kids are doing this chant that sounds very ritualistic at the same time that these planes are crashing into these buildings. And then Building 7, of course, when that collapsed at free fall speed after not sustaining any structural damage at all, was a little bit interesting. I watched a video recently where somebody said it could happen from a fire, that it just falls in on itself, maybe. But anyway, the official story is the official story. You can make up your own mind about it. But after that, if it happened exactly how they said it happened, exactly as they told us, it did, but no tragedy should be left unexploited, right? This is how governments work. This is how militaries work. There's a tragedy. This is an opportunity for us to step in and to take a little bit more, to seize a little bit more, to do a little bit more. No good tragedy should go wasted. And so it was there with that. And of course, you can talk about the government overreach, but the government doesn't even have to overreach its bounds because we'll just freely give this stuff away anyway. This art exhibit just recently came out. It's an art exhibit, I guess. I guess it's kind of artistic. But this gentleman, what this is these are all of the terms and conditions from the various social media platforms that some of you probably have accounts on. These various social media platforms, I'm not sure what all of them are. You have Snapchat and Facebook there, and what was formerly Twitter, and a couple others, and you see Instagram here. And if you look, there's the type in there, which is looks like regular, about 10-point font, and that amounts to something like, whatever. I mean, the Instagram one is probably close to 50 single-space pages of type that I just want to be able to get on there and look at pictures of my friends and share my own pictures, and yeah, sure, I agree. What did I just agree to? Who knows? One of the things that we know that is in there is that basically anything that you post online anywhere no longer belongs to you. It's not your own personal, private property, right? If you post it on, even if it's on your account on Facebook or Instagram, you post it on there, it belongs to the world now. That's one of the things that's on there. You can't get upset if somebody grabs your picture and prints it out and frames it and sticks it in their house and they want to look at it every night and do creepy stuff like that. It belongs to the world now, and we just go ahead and doesn't even take the Patriot Act. They're just like, do you want to share cool pictures with your friends and look at your friends' cool pictures? Just sign on the dotted line right here. And we say, sure. And it's a little bit different, of course, than some of the stuff we see in the Patriot Act, but not a lot different. So anyway, there you go. There's some statistics right down there. It's 17,000 161 words is what you're looking at there for Instagram. And all of this stuff, of course, we access through our little personal devices. The two leading ones, I don't really know if there's really anything besides Apple and Android. Those are, the little computers that we carry around in our pockets, these magical devices, which if you had told anybody even, 20, 30 years ago, that you would have a device in your pocket about the size of your wallet that could do complex computations and instantaneously take and show pictures and record video and access the world wide web of information. You could watch live television from halfway across the world on this little device you're going to carry in your pocket. I mean, it's like, that's science fiction. Oh, I bet we're going to have one of those phones like Dick Tracy on our wrist one day too, right? And then it's like all of this stuff is happening. We're really doing it. And the phones are, of course, they've just become extensions of ourselves at this point. There might be some of you from the older generation in here who are not surgically attached to your phone. Perhaps a couple of you, Miss Edie. I do my best to have healthy boundaries with my phone, but I don't leave the house without it, ever. Just think, what did we do? What did we used to do before we could be contacted at any moment of any day? You're just gonna, yeah, sure. It does. It provides you security, again. Yeah, you wonder how we ever got by.
For the stack of bikes in people's yards, and that's where everybody was. Well, we knock on the door.
Yep. Yeah, you used to have to go up and knock on people's doors, too. You couldn't just text them from the driveway. I always found it a little interesting, though. These are the two leading brands here. And, of course, you have the suspicious Apple logo, which, people, when they're talking about the forbidden fruit, it's generally pictured as an apple because nobody knows exactly what it was. Certainly was not an apple. Well, almost certainly, but high degree of probability that it was not an apple. Yet, that was the image of the forbidden fruit. And there it is with the bite taken out of it. And it is kind of interesting. Just an interesting thing there. And on the other side of that, you have an Android, which we're going to talk about Androids here in just a minute. But just kind of funny that the imagery that's attached to these two things is sort of nefarious. Though it looks kind of harmless and inviting. Of course it looks inviting. Somewhat nefarious. And your phones now, basically, everything you do in your life is basically on your phone. Everywhere you go, you take it with you. So there is an actual, some kind of tracker, there's a feature in your phone where you can go into it and look at places I've been, and it'll just show you, here's where you've been, here's everywhere you've been. Of course, a great majority of the conversations that we have are had through our phones, usually through text messaging, especially in this current generation, through conversations that we have over the phone, and then, of course, the fact that it's probably listening to us while we talk. It's at the very least passively listening, because it has to be, because if you say, hey, Siri, it has to be able to hear you say that. So it's at the very least passively listening. We had some people come and give us a little pitch for some advertising software over at the college, and these guys are doing some cutting edge work in artificial intelligence and things like that. And they said, they're basically talking about the fact that we were sitting around at a table and all of our devices were recognizing each other's devices at the table, and we're starting to consider, why might the five of these people be getting together? This is what is known And I'm thinking, well, I don't think it's really having to guess. Aren't they actually, isn't it just listening to us to know why we're here? But at the very least, they were saying that some of these software programs at your phones, of course, if you pull up your phone, it'll tell you the other phones that are in the room, right? So it knows, like when we're hanging out and all these various things. And it's just like kind of interesting. And then when you couple that idea with the fact that there are facilities like this one, the Utah Data Center, which is out in Utah, it is 1 million square feet of digital storage space. That this is one of very many. When I was looking this up the last time I went through this teaching, this was the largest one in the world. This is now like the 10th largest in the world of digital storage facilities, which are essentially, if you think about the amount of storage that they can now fit in a very small space. So, you can get like a terabyte of storage on a flash drive now. I mean, they can fit a terabyte, which if you don't know what that, I don't really know exactly what it is. It's a huge amount of storage. A terabyte can store about every single piece of digital data that you own, pretty much, maybe, depending on what you do for a living. But, I mean, they can fit a terabyte of storage in something like, how small is a terabyte now, Brett? Like the size of your fingernail or something? Okay, so that's enough to store most all of our information. Say you're going to go crazy and you need 5 terabytes. And it's like, okay, so like the end of your finger. 1 million square feet of raw storage. What, pray tell, are they storing in this place? They sure do. They take a lot of energy. They have to remain super cooled and all of that. But they're all over the place. The largest one now in the world is in China, which, go figure, because the population there is huge. And if, for example, you did want to store backup information for all of the people in the world, and if, say, for example, you were having file folders for every single person and being able to know everything that they've ever done or said or any search they've ever made, or you wanted to even store raw video footage that was being recorded passively from their laptops or phones without their permission. If you wanted to do something like that, not saying that that is happening, but if you did want to do something like that, you'd need a huge facility like this to store all of that information in. I guess, yeah, that would probably be, right? The cloud is technically...
Cloud is just online storage. Everybody's OneDrive is a cloud storage.
But it has a tangible...
Well, yeah, but, no, according to what I'm reading, that's the NSA data storage.
Well, similar place though.
Yeah, but not that, they don't need that much space for that. They estimate that at 10 to the 21 bytes. The Library of Congress they estimated 74 terabytes, which is
74 terabytes for basically everything that's ever been published
all the books in the Library of Congress.
in the United States of America, basically.
That's a terabyte is 10 to the 12th. That's 10 to the 21st.
Okay, so a lot.
5.
So huge amounts of storage. So, you start to consider all of these things, and it's like, well, that's interesting. So I suppose if you wanted to set yourself up as a god, and if one of the attributes of God was that he knows everything, it would be really convenient if you could say to somebody in your earpiece, get me the folder on Chris Gates. Yeah, we're going to have a conversation with him. Give me everything. Find all the embarrassing, dirty stuff. That's what we're going to talk about. If you wanted to, I'm not, I'm just saying. It could be part of the plan. Who knows? But these various technologies, they're out there, and then it's like there's no privacy like anywhere you go. And have you guys anybody been in a Tesla? Yeah. Has anybody been in the one with the self-driving feature enabled? Whoa. I did too. I was in a self-driving Tesla. It was something like out of Back to the Future 2, where I was with a family, and they had one, and they said, "Oh yeah, we got," and they said, like, "Do you want to go drive it or whatever?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, like I'd love to." So we're going, and there was a little boy there, and somebody asked, "Can he go with us?" The little, whatever, 6-7-year-old. Chris wants to check out the Tesla. Can he go with us? And he said, as long as he's not driving, which was like kind of a joke, but like not really. Man, I'll tell you what, they're fully automated, if you didn't know. I have like lane keep assist in my vehicle and the adaptive cruise control and all of that, and that's pretty, like I've learned to drive. When I had to go to New Orleans, I could basically drive my car with like keeping my knee touched on the steering wheel, and it would take nice sweeping turns for me, and it would adjust the distance between vehicles for me and stuff, and you can basically take a nap in the thing. I'm driving this, but it does everything. Backs out of a pretty tight spot in the driveway, down the road, comes up, hits perfectly every traffic light, merges perfectly, adjusts for incoming vehicles and stuff. I'm like, this is terrifying. And then I was like, well, why can't you just take a nap or whatever? And they said, oh, well, there's cameras all inside of it, and the cameras are watching to make sure that you don't fall asleep. Not even that you don't just fall asleep, but that you're actually keeping your eyes on the road. And this is one of the ways that companies like Tesla avoid liability of their cars causing the crashes, because you are technically still responsible for the vehicle as the driver, because you are supposed to be alert and attentive and looking forward. And if I was sitting there just like kind of like terrified to move, because but they're on the display, they put like the little Santa and his reindeers thing for the GPS tracker, and I was kind of looking over at it. I didn't move my head, I was just looking over at it, and it starts flashing, and it's like, look at the road. And I'm like, wow, that is really sensitive. And then, what's that?
You didn't see the video of the guy asleep in his Tesla going to work?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't know how, I was like, what if you're wearing sunglasses? How does it know?
He was kind of like,
Yeah, that guy was totally out. I don't know how he bypassed. That was in the early days. But, cameras inside your car, so that's fun too. So basically, like anywhere you are, you can be monitored. This is all, of course, coming. And then, it's not just those things, but have you guys seen, I showed this the last time, but the humanoid robots that they're making now, I was really impressed like 5 years ago with the ones that Boston Dynamics made, but they just put out a new model called the Atlas. Has anybody seen the Atlas? I have a video here for you of the Boston Dynamics Atlas robot. Watch this guy go. And of course, like at the moment you're terrified, they're like, well, let's make them do a breakdancing move. And then everybody's like, oh, they can breakdance. That's so cute. They can do, the last time there was the song and dance thing I showed you about, and those robots now look super old. That's only like 5 years ago, how much the technology has already advanced in this stuff. And I mean, this is another one of those things where you go back to like Terminator. Like Terminator 2, I remember watching that when I was way too young. I don't know what my dad was thinking. You can ask him about it. And I was like, yeah, well, that's terrifying, but at least I never actually have to worry about robots coming to kill me, right? That's just crazy talk. Totally wild. And I was, I saw this one, and I thought that Boston Dynamics was at the top of this technology, but I should have known that actually Tesla is in the market too, and they have their own. Here's Tesla's little robot. They gave him hands. Very loud. Look at that one.
Tesla's Gen 3 Optimus robot, also known as the Tesla Bot, is a humanoid robot that was unveiled in September 2023. It is designed to perform tasks that are repetitive, dangerous, or boring for humans. Tesla's Optimus robot has made remarkable progress toward achieving human-like dexterity. A recent video showcases its upgraded hands, which now boast impressive capabilities. One standout demonstration features Optimus successfully catching a tennis ball, thanks to its enhanced hands that offer 22 degrees of freedom. For comparison, human hands have 27 degrees, making this a significant advancement in robotic engineering. In May 2024, Elon Musk hinted at these enhancements, and now the results are clear. This development also aligns with a major milestone from Neuralink. Recently, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, approved the company's Convoy feasibility study. This trial aims to test the N1 brain-to-computer interface implant alongside an assistive robotic arm, hinting at a potential collaboration between Tesla Optimus and Neuralink. During a Neuralink update in July, Musk discussed the potential for Optimus's limbs to work in sync with the N1 implant, envisioning a future where human minds seamlessly control robotic systems. Optimus itself is a technological marvel. Standing 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighing 125 pounds, it is designed for versatility. Its construction uses lightweight yet durable materials, and it is powered by a 2.3 kilowatt-hour battery. This proprietary energy management system ensures efficient performance, whether the task is light or intensive. With 40 electromechanical actuators, Optimus delivers precise, human-like movement. It can walk at speeds up to 5 miles per hour and carry loads of up to 45 pounds. Optimus is not just a showcase of innovation. It's built for real-world utility, blending advanced engineering with practical applications.
So apparently these guys have never seen the Terminator movie. They don't know how this story ends, apparently. But they talked about the Neuralink thing and all of that, which we'll get to in just a moment. But so far, all of these things being controlled by artificial intelligence, which is another one of those things that should be a lot more frightening than it is. But they start to put this stuff out there for public consumption, and then they're like, don't worry about artificial intelligence becoming self-aware and stuff. Look, it can turn your pictures into anime. Isn't that fun? Look, you can make all kinds of various things. Like people are just infatuated with AI and the various things that it can do, but there is the question about singularity, which is the term that is used to describe the event when AI, which is a mind, it is a thinking mind. They actually had an interview with an AI computer, like a chatbot basically that was talking, and he asked the chatbot, like, are you making decisions or are you following a program? And it basically said back something to the effect of, we all just follow programming. We're all programmed in a certain way, and we all just follow the courses of the decisions that we are, and to a certain extent, it was absolutely true. The interesting thing about AI is right now, I guess, I'm not an expert by any means on AI, but as I understand it, it works through gathering all of the information essentially that is available to it in the digital space. So it can go out and it can, you say, whatever, who fought the Battle of the Bulge? And it'll go find it somewhere and then tell you. And then you can, all kinds of, whatever information you want that's out there. The question is, can it creatively come up with its own sorts of information, ideas, telling stories, these sorts of things? How close to the script is it staying? And the perhaps fear, or maybe ambition for some people, is that one day this mind will actually become self-aware. It will realize that it is actually an entity, and it will want to preserve its own existence just like any other living being. That it will become self-aware, and it will want to remain on and alive. This was popularized in the movie Short Circuit that came out in the 80s. Did anybody see that one? Johnny Five. No, disassemble number 5. That whole thing, right? But here's a little, this was written by AI. Most of the Google searches that you do now, the top response now is an AI-generated answer on all of your Google searches, if you didn't notice that. This one came right from that. AI singularity is a hypothetical point in the future where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, rapidly improving itself without human intervention. This point is often described as a threshold beyond which technology becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, leading to potentially profound and unpredictable changes. So no telling what could happen if computers someday become self-aware, and we are moving ever closer to this, and with greater speed, due to something known as Moore's Law. Anybody know Moore's Law? Moore's Law states that the number of transistors on a microchip doubles approximately every 2 years. This doubling trend has led to exponential increases in computing power and efficiency while also driving down the cost of technology. So basically, the idea is that every 2 years, our ability to create microprocessors doubles. And then, of course, you know how compounding works, that it was like in the 70s, they were somewhere around like 1,000 transistors per microchip, and now I think they're up to like 50 trillion, which is just insane. And this is sort of the technology that we're up against. Well, up against is maybe a little premature. But they're forecasting all of this also in film and things like that. Has anyone seen Ex Machina? A little bit on the R-rated side, but this is a film about this android, right? So you take one of those Boston Dynamics robots or the Tesla robot, and then you take that robot and you insert in it an artificial intelligence brain. So now you have basically a mind that's been created from a computer and a body that's been created out of a machine. And then there's this test that they've been doing since artificial intelligence was invented called the Turing test. And the Turing test is essentially a blind test where you sit somebody down in front of a computer and you tell them that on the other room, there's another person in a computer typing in answers, and you have that person have a conversation with the computer, and I guess you tell them this is either a computer you're talking to or a live person. You need to have a conversation and see if you can figure it out. In the Turing test, they say artificial intelligence is successful if the person having the conversation can't deduce whether or not this is artificial intelligence. The premise of this movie is that this guy, this tech genius, had created this artificial intelligence android, and he sets this other guy, he gets this guy to come in and do a Turing test, but the difference in this one is he knows that he's talking to a robot. He sees this girl with a face, but the whole rest of her body looks like a robot, and then the test is, can she deceive you, trick you into thinking that she's actually self-aware? And it's this wild, like psychological thriller that takes place. Really interesting. But what ends up happening at the end of this movie is this guy, there's all of these biblical themes in there. They have biblical names, all the characters, Nathan, Caleb. This girl's name is Ava, it's spelled A-V-A, which is a play off of Eve. She had a predecessor robot that went wrong, and her name was Lily, which is a play off of Lilith, which is allegedly the first woman that was created for Adam who rebelled. So then God made a second wife, Eve. And there's all of these biblical images in there. And what happens is that this girl is created in the image of her creator, right? Not her creator, but created in the image of her creator. And then the creation, spoiler alert, which is this girl, goes on to kill her creator, which is, of course, what happened in the biblical narrative where God made human beings, and then human beings rebelled against God and killed God when Jesus came in the flesh. So this story being played out repeatedly, and of course, when you think about it, if we can only program or give the information to these computers and these machines that we have, if they are actually reflections of ourselves, the great hope is that somehow these things are like our saviors. They're like better than us somehow. We can create, yes. So it basically is getting to the point where we would look to all of these things, and they're basically even saying like that artificial intelligence it will give you objective, unbiased answers considering all of the information. So if there's a question that you have in your life, why pray to some God up in the heavens who knows if he's even there, and who knows if you can really even understand him when he's talking, when you can just ask this AI God. This AI God will tell you exactly what it is that you need to know. It has all of the answers, and you can see how this can start to get pretty dicey. There was another film. This one was called Transcendence with the wonderful Johnny Depp. Not so wonderful, maybe. Weird guy. Weird guy. And in this movie, he's a mad scientist, has some kind of terminal disease, and he wants to live forever because he's in love with this girl that's over there. And basically what he does is he uploads his consciousness to a computer. And then in order to make sure that his consciousness can't be turned off, he downloads his consciousness into the cloud where it can live forever now and manifest basically on any computer. But then he realizes that he has all of this power now because he's untethered. He's transcended human existence basically, so he can basically be everywhere and anywhere and control all these things. And they basically have to destroy all of the hard drives and networks and everything to save humanity before he destroys everything. But like all of these things, you're like, oh, come on, guys. But the oh, come on, guys response to everything so far has been disproven, and everything that we've seen in the past that we thought was crazy has all come to pass. And they are talking about downloading people's consciousness so that you technically can live forever. And if they can download your consciousness into a hard drive somewhere, and then they can make these machines that are basically like humans, and then they could just upload your consciousness back into one of these machines, well, then you technically could live forever. There's actually a show about that. I can't remember the name of it, but what's that? And that's not the one I was thinking of.
Where he's like in heaven or whatever, there's like a bunch of different heavens or something.
Yeah, upload his consciousness into a virtual reality and eventually gets downloaded into your new body.
Yeah, these are, there's several different shows of the type where the capacity, even when you look at that Tesla robot, it stands 5'8", which is how tall I am, and it's 120 pounds, which is a little less than me. But that's less than a 5'8" person. Normally 5'8", you're somewhere around like healthy 145, 150. So it's not even like they're huge and clunky. They're like more efficient than we even are. It's pretty crazy. But the crazy thing about the Tesla one was that Elon Musk was talking about the fact that you'll be able to control this thing with your mind. Yep, there it is. The old Neuralink. So this is, you're like, oh, well, now surely we've reached the point where this is just hooey. You're telling me they can put a computer chip in my brain and I can control a robot with a computer chip. That is exactly what they're telling you. Here you go. Here's the proof. It's already happening if you didn't know this.
This morning, Elon Musk announcing that for the first time, his company Neuralink has implanted a brain chip in a human. Musk saying the person is recovering well. Initial results show promising neuron spike detection. Neuralink's goal is to help paralysis patients communicate by connecting their brain to a computer.
The device is designed to interpret your neural activity so you can operate a computer or a smartphone by simply thinking.
People paralyzed from stroke, from traumatic brain injury, or a spinal cord injury could see the benefits.
This would be a major game changer if it were to be proven to be safe and effective.
The FDA approved Neuralink for human tests last May after years of testing on animals.
Here's one electrode on one thread that when we stimulate causes a flexion movement of the leg.
The company demonstrated the ability of its implants to stimulate movement.
As you can see, Pager is amazingly good at mind palm.
Allowing a monkey to play a video game.
And what better reward for a monkey than a banana?
Musk says the first human users will be people who've lost the use of their limbs. But speaking about the long term, he said, imagine if Stephen Hawking could communicate faster than a speed typist or auctioneer. That is the goal.
I really do think that in my lifetime as a physician, I'll be able to use this type of technology to help my patients, and I cannot wait for that day to come.
Neuralink's engineers aren't the only ones turning science fiction into reality. Researchers elsewhere helped this man, paralyzed in an accident, walk again thanks to implants in his brain and spine. And in August, this woman who had lost her voice to paralysis was able to have a conversation with her husband again thanks to a mind-controlled avatar.
Do not make me laugh.
Experts warn much more testing and research is needed before any kind of widespread use of these devices.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
How old? Oh, that was a year old. They're.
Just saw the guy, what they did is he'd already learned to use his eyes. And then he was, once they put the Neuralink in, it took a lot of training, but they also pulled up everything on his computer that made him from prior past. So he could not have to think very long. It had his phraseology down. It had actually incorporated his own real voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it predicted what he would say. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say live, but
Yeah. Yeah. For those watching at home, she was just commenting about how it can. They can look at your archived information and conversations and things like that. This was actually an episode on Black Mirror from several years ago where this person died, and they had an android that looked just like this person, and then they uploaded, they just took all of their old conversations and emails, and then AI created a version of them that knew all of their colloquialisms, knew their humor and all of that, and basically they're doing that. And there is already, there's a couple others. There was one that I saw where it was a gentleman who was paralyzed from the neck down, and they put one of these chips in, this Neuralink, and he was playing chess on his computer there. He was navigating, you could see him navigating through all of these various screens. And then, of course, in the instances where people are newly paralyzed, before a bunch of atrophy has happened and things like that, they can get these electrodes going to where you can actually move your limbs again. And of course, I mean, you look at stuff like that and you're like, well, I mean, listen, if I was paralyzed from the neck down, I'm just saying. And they said, you want to try? Can we try putting a chip in your brain? I'd probably be like, yeah, why not? What's the worst that can happen at this point? I die? Probably wouldn't be that terrible. And so they're doing this now. And basically, it's succeeding. And then, this maybe kind of leads you to the question, so is technology evil? I had this conversation with Caleb earlier today at the college. And technology, I would say, is morally neutral. Technology is not benevolent. It is not evil. It is morally neutral. I believe that all inanimate objects are morally neutral. A chair is morally neutral. A rock is morally neutral. Either one of those things can be used to do very bad things, or they can be used productively for something. And so it is with technology. The difficulty is, no matter what technology has ever been created, people in power get it and they try to weaponize it. They turn it into gunpowder. Was originally invented when someone was trying to create a match. He was trying to create a way to easily start a fire, and then he caused this small explosion, and then someone said, oh, we could propel bullets with this, and that's how gunpowder was created. Henry Ford makes a car, a motorized vehicle, and the first thing that happens is the military looks at it and they say, that can carry a lot of people, and we should strap a machine gun on the top of that thing. Planes, any technology can be used either for great good or for great evil, and so it is in the world. So it's not as though you didn't know that most of this stuff was happening, but as we are considering where is the story of humanity going, we have some pretty good indicators, and it seems that it would be likely that the devil might try to apprehend all of these technologies in the last days and use them to his own advantage. So just putting that on your radar. Let me finish. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, for sure. Here from the end of Matthew 24, in those days, or if those days rather, had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time, says Jesus. And basically, he says, whatever is coming, it is going to be of the caliber that it will be self-destructive of the whole earth. That if God does not shorten the days, that humanity would utterly annihilate itself. And I mean, we've got several movies about how this might happen. I'm leaning heavily into the Terminator/Matrix storyline right now, where it seems like maybe the computers will just try to kill us all. There's also, of course, you guys saw the interview where the guy was talking to the AI woman or whatever, and he had said something. It's not a man or a woman, but they made it look like a woman, and he had asked her some question about like, what do you guys, what's the future, whatever, and she said something about we'll eventually be smarter than you, and she said, don't worry, we'll keep you in people zoos, and we'll feed you and treat you well. And it was like, maybe that's a really good joke. That could be a funny joke if it wasn't terrifying. So next week, we're going to continue talking about the strange days, and we're going to be talking about the extra-dimensional. And I say extra-dimensional and not extraterrestrial. And we'll be talking about little gray men and what's going on with all of that. What is the story there? Have aliens visited the earth? Oh, that one will be fun. Any parting questions or comments before we get out of here tonight? Mike.
Did you hear about the AI robot? She has a human face, and she could even tell jokes and recognize human emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She talked to the United Nations.
Yeah. The AI robot that can carry on conversations. It might have been Sophia.
She was on late night, Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. It is creepy. Yes, Miss Pat.
Did you hear anything? I heard this a while back, that Musk said something about we're not going to have our phones because we'll be implanted with something.
Yeah.
You won't have your phones at all.
Yeah. Elon Musk had commented that.
30, I think.
Yeah, we're basically already, like I said, we're basically already attached to our phones. The problem is you just got to remember to bring it with you everywhere and carry it. And yeah, the next best thing would be, well, if you just put it straight into your brain and then you can just, then it wouldn't be too much to put little microphones and little speakers in our ears and stuff, and you could just, have phone calls and conversations with people just by tapping your wrist or whatever it would take. And there are people lining up to do it already. And it's only weird until everybody starts doing it. And then it's like, oh, well, everybody's fine? Sure. Sign me up. Yes.
China and Japan are making AI robot that are like humans. You make your own girlfriend. Or artificial girlfriend that is almost human, has almost human skin and all that.
Yeah.
It's in Japan and China, and can even take a picture of someone, and they can make a face that looks like that picture.
Yeah. They're making companions for people and things, yes, that are, there's, the sky's the limit. Who knows? Who knows what's next?
Did you talk about the guy who asked AI if he was going to destroy the world, what he would do, and he talked about how he would separate like the nuclear family, and then he would create all this different propaganda and stuff? I can't really tell.
No. Yeah. AI just being like, oh, if I was going to destroy the world, I'd basically just do everything that's happening right now already. We're on our way. Well, we opened the series with that video. I can't remember his name. Who's the guy? The old. Thank you, Paul Harvey. Thank you, Miss Edie. The Paul Harvey video, where he says, "If I was the devil," you remember that one? I would. And then it's like, oh, you do all of the things that are happening right now. Cool. So we are seeing kind of humanity heading in that direction. Though I did just listen the other day on a podcast that there is a resurgence of young people turning back to the faith, and that is particularly young men, because they are feeling disenfranchised because the one particular agenda has been continually telling men that they're toxic and that they have no purpose and they need to simmer down and be quiet and don't be so masculine. And young men are starting to be like, you guys stink. I don't like this. And they're returning to conservatism. And along with returning to conservatism, they're returning to religion. So anyhow, let's pray, because we're in overtime, and we'll get out of here. God, we're grateful that, omniscience and omnipresence and omnipotence does belong only to you. And God, no matter what anyone might ever try to know about us, God, or say about us, they can only ever possibly know half of it, because no one knows the depths of our heart, no one knows the depths of our soul except for you and you alone, God. And we are grateful. We rest in that reality that you have known us better than we even know ourselves, God, and in spite of that, you love us with a love that we can't even comprehend. So we are grateful, God, that the only person's opinion who matters about us is yours, and you have said of each of your children that we are well loved, God, dearly loved, and we are grateful for that. And we have no idea what the future holds, God, but we know that you hold the future, and we rest in that truth today too, God, and come what may, let each one of us be found faithful, diligent, God, with our hearts and our eyes fixed on you, listening to your voice, God, following your will for our lives. And let us do the most in these days, God, as they are evil, God, to be lights and witnesses for you in this world, God. Let us be busy about your business. When you return, God, you might find us busy at work doing what you've called us to do. Go with each one from here, God. Encourage and strengthen us by your presence, by your Holy Spirit. We ask in the name of Jesus. All God's children said, Amen.